All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And so this is just a little PDF I wrote up and put together. And it's not only from, my own experiences, but others' experiences as well that, I've seen, heard about, known about, all these things. And the reason I wanted to get into this was because, like myself, I had no idea these type of people even existed. And if you don't know what to look out for, you're not going to see the red flags that you need to see to know to, stay as far away from these type of people as possible. It doesn't mean we can't pray for them. It doesn't mean we can't try to intercede for them through the prayer and fasting. But, like we just read those few verses in Enoch, there's those who are just, they have nothing but evil intentions and purposes, and for one reason or another. And this is just going to basically cover that common ground, just a generalization of what to look out for. And, it's not just men, it's not just women, it's both. The same exact spirit, it affects both in the same way, the same exact red flags. It does not matter, which gender. And, it's the Jezebel spirit, the Leviathan spirit, the narcissistic spirit. It's basically all same difference, really, is what it is. So, and I wanted to share this, just because of letting people be aware of the red flags to look out for. And I also wanted to give a little bit of my testimony and, really just show the glory of Yahuah and how he can help, persevere through these things and help to overcome if you've been through any of this. All right, so the term Jezebel spirit is derived from the biblical figure Jezebel, who is associated with manipulation, false teachings, and sexual immorality, particularly in Revelation 2, verses 20 through 23. The spirit is often described as promoting control and leading others away from true worship, leading them away from a foundation of Scripture. The concept of the Jezebel spirit is often associated with manipulation, control, and immorality. The Jezebel spirit is often described as controlling, manipulative, seeking to dominate others through intimidation and fear. It promotes heretical beliefs and practices, leading individuals away from sound doctrine. The spirit is associated with sexual immorality and a disregard for moral standards, really for any standards at all. The Jezebel does not submit to headship or recognize authority over them, and are usually tossed around like waves of the sea with every wind of doctrine. And it's because they're constantly changing up their ways to, manipulate others or forcing them to do what they want to do. And constantly forcing their views and opinions onto others and condemning others if they do not agree with everything said, leaving a trail of hurt, pain, and destruction in their wake without taking any accountability for anything they've done. They often lie so much that they believe their own lies, and they also get caught up in them, unable to remember all the lies that they've told, and therefore exposing themselves. So yeah, when one is doing nothing but lying, manipulating, all of these things, they cannot remember their own lies that they told, and they will therefore expose themselves by not even remembering the lies they told. The accusations they make are projections onto others for the very things that they are guilty of, shifting the blame to others for what they themselves do. They will also use people for their intelligence, their intellectual minds, excuse me, or scriptural knowledge, and use that information to act like it is their own, in an attempt to paint themselves in a good light, or as knowledgeable, having no foundation in scriptures at all. And that's exactly what they do. They will just copycat somebody or a group of people, or gather a whole group of people to use their knowledge or what have you, take it and call it their own, and then project themselves in some kind of good light. Like they know all these things, but really in reality, they have no clue. So Revelation 2:20 through 21. But I have this against you. You tolerate that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess. By her teaching, she misleads my servants to be sexually immoral and to eat food sacrificed to idols. Even though I have given her time to repent of her immorality, she is unwilling. And 1 Kings 16:31. And as if it were not enough for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he even married Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians. Sidonians, yeah. And then he proceeded to serve and worship Baal. Nothing new under the sun. So the Jezebel spirit is often misunderstood as solely affecting women, but however, it can influence both men and women. These individuals use deceit to achieve their goals. There's often a desire to dominate situations or people and even groups. The spirit encourages defiance against established authority, including spiritual and familial structures. The Jezebel spirit seeks to create chaos and division, particularly in groups that aim to glorify Yahuah. It can lead to conflicts and strife, undermining unity and peace, undermining that shalom. And, those of us who have been here for quite some time, I'm sure you have noticed when one person was removed from our group and no longer allowed back, you can see how much peace and unity, shalom, has come since. We're known by our fruits. But I'll get into that. There's no guarantees of not breaking down, though, so bear with me. So they have no problems pointing out others' flaws. However, when theirs are pointed out, they reflect it onto the person who points them out. They will accuse, belittle, and even name call, making others feel like they are in the wrong, when in actuality, it's the accuser who is wrong. They have no problems using flattery and flirting and telling others how much they love them, all to manipulate the victim to do their bidding. When the victim has had enough or calls them out, the Jezebel will do everything they can to paint the victim in a bad light, even abandoning them to keep their secrets from being exposed, and playing the victim in an attempt to discredit the actual victim. Their actions after the victim has been abandoned or left is often spiteful and vindictive, in an attempt to cause as much pain and hurt as they can to the ones who love them or were close to them. And they do that because they hate being caught, they hate being exposed. They don't want to be the ones, in this bad light, so they will paint everybody else who they had just left behind, who they turn their backs on. They'll paint them in the bad light. But to protect oneself from the influence of the Jezebel spirit, please consider the following strategies. The awareness, knowing these red flags. Recognize the signs of manipulation and control, the red flags. The spiritual warfare. Engage in prayer and seek Yahuah's guidance to resist and rebuke its influence. And the community support is surrounding yourself with supportive individuals, just like we have here, who uphold Yahuah's values, standards, and his Torah. Very important to be around like-minded people who are loving, compassionate, uplifting, who will pray for you, who will walk through the fire with you. So covert narcissists hide in the body because the environment gives them exactly what they crave most: unquestioned admiration with minimal accountability. In these spaces, people often assume the best in others and extend automatic trust and avoid confrontation. A covert narcissist knows this. They blend into the spiritual atmosphere by acting humble, gentle, or deeply wounded, using religious language as a shield that protects their image. It's the perfect stage for someone who thrives on appearing righteous while behaving very differently behind closed doors in private. Do not be fooled by these types of people who are unfortunately rampant in the body of Messiah. Always examine the fruit, as we are known by our fruits. Are they prideful, haughty, aggressive, violent, or have outbursts of rage over seemingly small issues? And that's the thing as well. Are they sowing, chaos and division, separation, things like that? These are things to look out for. And they also hide there because scriptural-based communities tend to prioritize forgiveness and unity over calling out harmful behavior. A covert narcissist knows that if they ever get exposed, they can spiritualize their actions. Like, oh, well, we all fall short. Or, don't judge me. Or the devil is attacking our unity. Or even blaming others for the actions of the enemy. Downplaying the fight against the spirits and principalities. Basically, they will, instead of, knowing and understanding that, it's a spiritual battle, the enemy is the one whispering into our ears sometimes. Instead of, holding and taking accountability for that, they will just blame others and say, oh, well, you're just a bad person. That's why that happens to you. And just, yeah. They weaponize scripture and twist scripture to silence anyone who notices the truth. This keeps them insulated from consequences because the body becomes a place where the victims worry they won't be believed, or the victim will be persecuted as a slanderer or gossiper by those who the narcissist has convinced they could do nothing wrong. And it's so very true. I myself have gone through that very recently. But anyways, let me continue here. So another reason is to access influence. Covert narcissists love positions where they can subtly control narratives. Yep. Leading small groups, praying for people, volunteering, or staying close to leadership in an attempt to get the leadership to defend them as a misunderstanding if the narcissist, a misunderstanding of the narcissist when their attitude shows. I myself, unfortunately, did this. Instead of seeing the red flags, I I defended it as oh, well, you're just misunderstanding the passion and things like that. That wasn't true at all. And this puts them in circles where admiration flows easily. They become the helpful one, the loyal one, or the super spiritual one. Meanwhile, they quietly study everyone's weaknesses, building a form of social power that looks nothing like what they preach. They will use this information against others when their agenda is not conformed to expose the victim and paint them in a bad light. They will use word curses, undermine relationships, and have no problem destroying marriages, all to gain an advantage and control, all in a subtle way, so that many will not even notice when it's happening. And when you do notice, it's too late. True believers also give them a steady supply of empathy, something they crave but can never give back. When they play the role of the struggling believer or the misunderstood servant, people rush in to comfort, encourage, or uplift them. That support becomes their fuel. And then they drain the emotional energy from spiritually generous people without ever offering true vulnerability or honesty in return, as they will never do anything for you that you do for them. It's that unrequited love, love that you give but is not given in return. Never expect them to give anything in return. And if you're doing, yeah, if you, yeah, no, that's exactly what it is, brother. Borderline personality disorder. They can have these different labels and names, but it all falls under the same Jezebel spirit, this Leviathan narcissist spirit. And that's kind of what my testimony is going to be about as well. I've been through it twice now in my life, and all I can say is never love the red flags out of people. All right, so okay, so they never offered the vulnerability or honesty in return, and wearing out others until the victims are too drained to even do the simple things they were doing before, like studying, Bible readings, prayer, you name it. It gets hard to even do the little things when you're struggling through this type of situation. And this ultimately leads to deep, hurtful betrayal by the narcissist, leaving the victim heartbroken and overcome with grief and deep pain that can last for months or even years. Often others will see the victim and tell them to get over it, or I've been through it. It doesn't take this long to get past. Not understanding the torture or the torment the victim has been through that is often very hard to even put into words or explain. And this is absolutely true. I've been through this. It's very hard to even put things into words sometimes. Yeah, no, same here, brother. And they will often find a new partner immediately after, or even before a relationship has ended, rushing into marriages in an attempt to hurt the victim as much as possible. They are concerned about what will benefit them the most, chasing money and worldly possessions, with no cares for the destruction they have caused, even to their own children. And finally, covert narcissists hide in the body because it keeps them looking holy or set apart, while they continue doing harm and destruction privately. The body becomes their camouflage. It protects their reputation while giving them access to people who don't suspect manipulation. They fear exposure more than anything, so they choose environments where confrontation feels, taboo. And when confronted, they will lie and bear false witness against the one who has exposed them, or have seen who they truly are in private, often the ones who are close and love them. This is why they turn their backs on all who are involved, so that there are no past connections to be able to expose them. And then they can paint their victims in a bad light and tell a very one-sided story about the whole entire situation. Yeah, exactly. Compartmentalization of people. That's exactly it, brother. Yet nobody is beyond healing and the touch of Yahuah. I agree. Yeah, no. Many of us have been through this. Yeah, they are chameleons. Exactly, Andrea. This is the perfect breeding grounds for the Leviathan and Jezebel Spirit to operate. 100%. On point. Yeah. No, exactly, Sister Kim. Yeah, once you see the red flags, then you can realize, how many of these people are actually, hiding in the body. It doesn't even have to be the body. They're hiding in the world as well. Very prevalent, very destructive, very heartless and uncaring, really. So, where was I here? So this is why they turn their backs on all who were involved. So there are no past connections to expose them, painting their victims in a bad light. Yep, men operating in the spirit prey on empathetic women who have a heart and desire to submit. Yes, so true. Because that's what they look for. And when it's opposite, when it's the woman doing that to an empathetic man, they refuse to submit. They will actually try to take control. They will try to dominate. Yeah, exactly, Kim. When we build your husband, for example, when he built his life in response to trauma, it's, and that as well, having your parents as narcissists, that will that will definitely have a negative effect on your outlook. Yeah, or want to fix them. Yeah, exactly, brother. And they try to make you think you're the one that's crazy. Yeah. Yep. These behaviors are often a response to trauma, and they do these behaviors because it works for them. Yeah, and see, that's the thing as well. And usually these people have so much trauma and pain and hurt themselves that that's how they cope with it. But honestly, it's our own, we have free will, and it's our choice whether we are going to cope with it that way. Because I cannot believe that these people don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. I've been through it twice, and they literally choose to be that way. When you don't see, don't, sorry, When you don't do as they say, they accuse you of not being a man or a woman of Yahuah. Yes. All spiritual control, you're in a manipulationship, not a relationship. Yes, that. I was accused daily of that very thing. You know, I'm not a man of Yah. I'm not a real man. I'm not a man. I just gotta, suck it up, be a man about it, and belittled, trampled, trashed on the daily. Yep, trauma, unhealthy coping strategies. They operate out of fear and lack of self-worth, promoting themselves up to be more than they really believe they are, trying to play the part. But if you dig deep enough, you'll find that they are weak with fear. Do not give them an excuse, mind you. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They literally live in fear of being exposed and caught for exactly what they're doing. Yeah, I hate you, but don't leave me. Yep. And then the next sentence is, well, I love you and you're my best friend. You're just too good for me. Unpunishable, Ending Our Love Affair with Punishment. A book by Danny Silk. Yeah, thank you for that. Deep inner wound from childhood that opened a door, giving these spirits legal rights. Yes, that's it. It's the opening of the doors to these unclean ruach. And then these unclean ruach, therefore, then control them. They're whispering in their ears. So many things. They're a lot of them are just, for the lack of a better term, they're ran through with demons. And they don't even realize it. And then you try to, help them by explaining to them how to cast demons out and things like that. And they're vehemently against it because those demons inside of them don't want them to know this information. Yep, exactly. Man, it's really, really like, it's traumatic, it's destructive, it's demonic, and it just leaves a trail of heartbreak, scars, wounds, very deep wounds. And, these types of things, they're very hard to overcome. I've actually read that book there, Brother Michael. Interesting enough, because of my son's mother. I heard about that book way back then, and I got it and read it. Yeah, we stop walking on eggshells, and that's what it is. It's because that is how they force their victims to be, just to constantly walk on eggshells, to the point of where, the victim of all this, they just give up. They're just like, all right, I'll do whatever, just to avoid argument and strife. And, that still does not even work, though. They will still argue and belittle and bash and trash. Literally, there's nothing you can do about these people. The saying, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's literally what it's like being with a narcissist. Pulling the rug out from under you, changing the rules all of the time. Yes. That's exactly what it is. Just the blame shifting, well, it's not my fault, it's you're the one that's doing all this. Actually, there's a video I'm going to play about that too. It's only a couple minutes long, but I'll play it after I'm done reading this here and just before I give my little testimony. But yeah, It's a perfect example of exactly who these type of people are, you know. let me try to continue here. So where was I? Here, I'll just start here. So this is why they turn their backs on all who were involved. So there are no past connections to expose them, and they can paint their victims in a bad light. That's why the survivors who speak up are often silenced, not because they are wrong, but because the narcissist has already built up a perfect disguise under the language of faith. And the ones misled by them will accuse the victim, not knowing the victim is crying out for help and not knowing the abuse or the torment they have just gone through. We will reap what we sow, and we're known by our fruits. Never try to love the red flags out of anybody, as it will end in heartbreak and pain. And we will all be held accountable for everything we have done on the great day of Yahuah, including these Jezebels, these narcissists, these Leviathans. They may hold no accountability for anything they do now, but they definitely will. Yeah, exactly, brother. Always your fault. In counseling, they only attend in search of allies, never to find healing. That's it, brother. Run everything through the lens of Scripture. If it doesn't align with His everlasting word, it's not from Yahuah. I love that. That's it. Didn't have a good grip on Scripture at the time, but figured things out pretty quickly. And yeah, that's the thing too, is, you know, if someone doesn't have a strong foundation in Scripture and these people are using Scriptures as a weapon, you know, look out. But yes, you know, they will all be held accountable for everything that they do, for the path of destruction and chaos that they create. They will be held accountable for it. And honestly, that's why it's really important to forgive them. And it's not because, you know, we feel they're deserving or anything like that, but it's for ourselves. Because holding on to unforgiveness, it causes those bitter roots to start growing. And then, you know, then you just have bitterness and it's always just affecting you because, you know, you are unforgiving. Not only that, if we are unforgiving, we will be unforgiven as well. And, you know, it's something I struggle with as well myself right now. It's, you know, how usually I don't have a problem with forgiving. And it's really easy for me to forgive. There's only two people it's been extremely difficult for me to forgive. One of them I've already forgiven, my son's mother. The other one is so very recent. I'm learning and working on forgiveness. Very tough. Yep. Let's forgive them, intercede for them, and palau. They all come to repentance and receive deliverance. Yes, absolutely. All right, so it is a separation of the wheat from the tares, and the wheat bow in humbleness and meekness, while the tares stand tall with pride, ego, and arrogance. Be diligent and on guard, and use discernment to identify the red flags in others. And I can even say, you know, to even identify these things in ourselves, if we see any of this in ourselves, you know, we got to squash it, get that out. Yep, exactly. we don't battle against the flesh and blood, but against the powers and the principalities. And that's what I believe this ruach is, this unclean ruach is. It's a principality. And I can see that because, whoever is affected by it, they all act in a very similar manner, even the exact same manners. Even the exact same words in some cases. Completely different situations, completely different genders will all say, do, act the same way. So here's a couple of good things here I got up on screen. So this one is, I will no longer choose people who disrespect my boundaries, take me for granted, bring constant drama into my life, who don't support my growth, who make me feel small or unimportant, who manipulate or control me, who only reach out when they need something, who criticize me instead of encouraging me, who lie or deceive me, who judge me based on their standards, who are selfish with their time and energy, who don't value my time or effort, who don't respect my opinion or feelings, who take more than they give, who aren't loyal or trustworthy, who don't celebrate my success, our achievements, our overcoming of things, who drag me down with negativity, who avoid accountability for their actions, and who use me to fill their own void and make me feel like I'm not enough. All 20 of these things I have just been through. And, really, this is a lot for myself to read all these, because literally every single one of these things on this list. And I know many of you here as well. Yeah, that as well, Kim. Even being around these people, you will start acting like them and becoming like them. And I know there's several in here who noticed that about me. I started acting in that similar way. I didn't even realize it until, several of you came and reached out to me about it. And I really had to humble myself and take a step back and be like, wow, I didn't even realize that. Well, that's awesome, Sister Kim. Yeah, that is not usually the case, but all praise to the Most High. That's great. Oops, sorry, I forgot to read this one. So know this: even the people that betray you were part of the plan. Messiah couldn't fulfill his mission if it weren't for Judas, and that's so true. There you go, brother. And yeah, no, I was gonna give a little bit of my testimony as well here, but yeah, hockey players don't hook up with chess players. When we're broken, we tend to find broken people to hook up with, and as they say, hurt people hurt people. Yeah, exactly. Very, very true. So here's another one. So all witchcraft isn't about spells and candles. This is why it's listed in Galatians as a work of the flesh. At its core, witchcraft is manipulation, intimidation, and domination. And that's exactly what it is. And, about the hurt people thing, there's 100% that, but there's also hurt people who help people as well. Those are just fewer and farther between. And really, I think that's going to be a part of my testimony as well, because, as I'm going through these trials and tribulations and walking through the fire, I can see that Yahuah is putting it on me that I'm supposed to be able to help others through these same things. I've walked through the fire more times than I ever wanted to, but it's refined me, and it's taught me, these coping skills actually with scriptural foundation. Yeah, helping others helps me. Yeah, me as well, brother. Me as well. I feel it is put on me that my purpose is to be able to help others and to bring everybody together in love and compassion, gather people. And the narcissist will mirror you and become who they believe you want. They're performers and will play a chess player if you're a chess player, but they can only live up to the performance for so long until the mask falls off. Very, very true. And that's it. They are actors, they're counterfeits, they are copycats, is what it is. And so here's one. It's conversations with narcissists. So let's make sure we don't waste any time. The narcissist. So I'm a waste of time? You. No, that's not what I said. Narcissist. Right. I'm a liar now too? You. Wait, you're misunderstanding me. Narcissist. Because I'm so stupid, right? You. No, I'm not saying that. Narcissist. You always cause problems. You. You're twisting everything. Listen. Narcissist. Right. It's my fault you're abusive. This was literally a daily conversation for me. I had to put up with that on the daily. I don't even know how I did it, honestly. I truly don't. Looking back at it all, I have no idea how I put up with it, lived with that. Oh, I know. Most people here know her. So the signs of a stony heart, or the narcissistic heart. A hardened heart is basically a heart that is unfazed by things others would be compassionate about. It is a heart that is rebelling against Yahuah. And Yahushua Messiah said, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks. And that's Luke chapter 6, verse 45. Yeah, no, very true, brother. We put up with it, even though it's painful, it's familiar. It, yeah, it is a familiar spirit, exactly. And so here's a list of 21 strong warning signs that a heart has hardened and needs repair. If repair is even possible, honestly, I could say that. It's not impossible always, but for the most part, it's unchanging for them, sadly. But we'll start right here in the middle. So, prideful, inflexible, no authentic connection with the Ruach, dismissive, blame shifter, resentful, no desire to understand others' point of view, a fault finder, selfishness, bitterness, unrepentant, spiteful, lack of empathy, lack of compassion, unforgiving, easily offended, arrogant, stubbornness, superficial relationship with Yahuah. That's the thing too. Are these people even true believers? Is the thing, or are they just using it as some kind of front for everything that they need? You know, they're hateful and they have a lot of anger. Yeah, you can go through this with multiple relationships because it's the same spirit packed different. A new face, familiar spirit. Yes, exactly. Yep, there's that as well, brother. You know, if you keep going through it in multiple relationships, then the problem is me, not them. And that's why we got to learn to look out for these signs and these red flags and know that, no, we got to stay away from that. My picker is broke. You know, I feel that, brother. I feel that. So, with that, so that's the end of what I have wrote up. Actually, I forgot, I wanted to share this video here. So, it's actually one I got off of from Facebook, but it's very, very accurate. It's only a couple minutes long here, but we'll watch.
All right, just finished.
Yeah, okay. I just have to do everything again twice.
What do you mean? It's great.
No, you don't do it like up to my standards. It's just
I did it exactly how you've told me in the past. It looks great.
This is your best effort, really? You think this looks clean?
Wow.
It's so frustrating that I have to redo all of your work. It's like, why can't you ever do it right the first time?
I love you.
Okay,
What?
you're always touching me.
I just wanted to give you a kiss.
It's just not attractive. It feels like you're so needy, and like it's just like it doesn't feel like you're like a real man. You know, like I'm not into that.
Because God forbid I love my wife and want to share intimacy with you.
It's just not attractive. I'm just
wow. Okay, I'm gonna leave.
I'm not saying don't go. I'm just saying it's like, why do you have to keep hanging out with these people?
Out the door right now. I'm leaving. They're my childhood friends.
I feel like they're trying to get you to break up with me.
No,
they don't
they're
support
not.
our relationship.
They're my best friends from bringing a freaking
You
kid
don't
together.
act the same when you come home after hanging out with me.
I think I may be relaxing
Okay.
who I really am more.
Can you just text me when you get there and text me before you're on your way home?
How about...
Do you have your location services turned on?
All right, I'm ready to go.
You're not wearing that.
What do you mean? I love this outfit.
You look ridiculous.
What?
I'm sorry, honey. Like, I need to teach you fashion. No. I'm going to go pick you out a new outfit. There's still time before they're going to get here. It's not your fault, babe. It's because of where you're from. But, I mean, good job trying. You can pick out one of the 3 options I'm going to get for you.
Who's that? What are you looking at?
Yeah, this is my ex, and I just saw him pop up on my Facebook page. It's just so weird. He just got married. It's like, sometimes I wonder, like, how different my life would have been if I would have made different choices.
What do you mean? Like,
everyone just thought I'd end up with somebody different, you know? Everybody knows that I married for love and not, like, other things. So it's just
what
just
other things? What?
I just had so many opportunities before settling down. It's just, I never pictured my life looking like this. A covert narcissistic wife isn't coming at you directly. It's covert. It's in these subtle ways that imply that you're lucky to even be with her. She chips away at your confidence and disguises her criticism as concern. She makes every single mistake your fault. And she is constantly implying that she could have done better than you without directly saying it. The truth is that she has deep wounds of shame and rejection and is trying to project those wounds onto you to make you feel unlovable, to mask how deeply she feels unlovable. If she can make you feel small, she never has to face or heal these wounds.
This book will outline the wound of rejection, how to spot it, how it shows up in your relationship,
Oh, my bad. I totally forgot to unmute. I'm sorry. But yeah, so I wanted what I was saying. Give me just a moment. Anyway, so I wanted to give a little bit of my testimony, and it's not to bash or to trash or anything like that. That's not my goal or intent here. But my goal and intent is actually to give a testimony to Yahuah and his blessings that come. And sometimes, it takes walking through that fire to be refined like gold. And when we're going through it, it may feel terrible and hurtful, but the blessings will come if you stick to that narrow path and you stick to following him. And so I've been through this twice in my life, and unfortunately, they both played out basically the exact same way, and they both ended in nearly the exact same way as well. And it was my son's mother, and we'd met a long time ago, and we'd known each other probably about a couple years before we decided, well, I shouldn't say we decided, she decided she wanted to marry me. And me being foolish, I fell for it. And not knowing that these type of people existed, I had no idea what I was in for, and it was 3 years of torment and torture, putting up with adultery and cheating, manipulation, lying, just so many different things in that whole relationship. And it ended up when my son Callan was probably about a year old or so. She abandoned us. It happened while I was working, and she had ran away with this guy who was a very dangerous, very meth addicted person. And the darkest part of that, using needles, shooting it up, things like that, very, very terrible. But anyways, so while I was working, she had come to my work with this guy, stole my car, crashed it in a hit and run, and disappeared for months. During that time, I had filed for emergency custody, and I got it. And so I had the emergency custody, and it lasted until the divorce hearing that was going to happen. And like I said, she had disappeared after this hit and run crash. The car was just totaled. She ended up showing up a day before the hearing. She didn't look like the same person. She didn't act like the same person. She didn't talk like the same person. It just wasn't the same person at all. She used to be very beautiful, had all her teeth, all these things. And it only took 3 months for her to age like 20 years, start losing her teeth, hair start falling out, you know, talking differently, even sounding differently. It was wild. I didn't even recognize her when she had came back, and that's how different she was. But anyways, she came back to try to manipulate me into giving her partial custody, things like that, not having her pay child support and all kinds of stuff. And I felt it that she was lying. Don't give in to what she's saying. She's just trying to manipulate you. And honestly, all praise to the Most High Yahuah that I didn't give in to what she was saying, because that was exactly her plan. When I had won everything, I won full custody, I won child support, all of this. We she didn't even leave the courtroom, and she was on the phone with this guy, and just like trying to bash and trash me, and I heard it all. And it was very hurtful at the time. I was very broken. I had no idea these type of people existed. And that's when I found it was a narcissistic support group. And that's when I learned who these type of people are. They were. And so, does somebody have their mic unmuted? Somebody's mic. Greg, do you mind muting your mic there? Hold on, my scroll wheel is broken. I can't. Oh, there it is. Okay, anyways. So, soon after that, it was maybe like a year or something, she had just disappeared, gone. For like 8 or 9 years, most of Callan's life, he didn't see her, didn't know about her, none of these things, because he was only just a little baby when she left and abandoned us. But all praise to the Most High, because, that's when Yahuah opened my eyes. That's when I found, his narrow path, his way. And honestly, that was the blessings that came from walking through that. Because at the time, I was barely a believer. I barely even read scriptures, things like that. And, I didn't know his name at the time, but I was telling Yahuah, please, if you're real, just help me through this. And I promise I will commit my life to you in finding out your truth. And it wasn't soon after that, he took all that pain and that hurt away, and I felt better, like, right away. It was truly amazing. And I was just like, wow, that's it. That's 100% a sign that he exists. And so I started researching, studying, and looking at all these different things, especially on like YouTube. And that's how I ended up, finding like Rob Skiba and Adam Fink and all them. And, they really helped in my growth in my path to walking that narrow path. And it helped me to realize, like, look, I'm not the only one who's actually seen these things in scriptures, because I was reading his word every single day. And that's when I was seeing, what scripture says isn't what they teach you in these churches. Not at all. And it was really, really inspiring to see others that have found, the same path. And I was just like, wow, I'm not the only one. I'm not so crazy after all. But anyways, that started my journey down this narrow path. And, ever since then, I've dedicated my life to Yahuah, to studying His Word, and just seeking out His truth, having that absolute foundation in His Word. Yeah, exactly, brother. Exactly. And anyways, so for that whole time, I had remained single because I had put up a wall around my heart because I didn't ever want to feel that way again the way I did. So I just had a wall around my heart. I wasn't focused on any of that. And then until, just a few years ago, and I was like, man, this is really kind of a lonely walk, and really hard to do alone. It was just me and Callan, and when you don't have a full family, it can be a real struggle, especially when you're a single parent doing everything. You're playing both roles, and it's very hard. But anyways, so I was praying, I was fasting, and I was just asking Yahuah, please, if it's your will, if there's somebody out there, please just send me someone who would make a good wife. I wanted a believer, someone sound in the faith, has a foundation in scriptures, all of these things. And 2 years ago, just before Passover, that's when me and Katrina had met. And it was literally like 2 days after I had prayed. And I think her first question to me was all asking about the calendar. And so I was answering the questions, things like that. And I was like, wow, this person, they're a believer and they're following the same calendar. That's awesome. And then, you know, since that day, we started talking daily and, just on the phone, things like that. And things started to get, deeper. And, we started basically building a relationship because I thought, this is the person who I was praying for. This is who Yahuah sent. It's got to be. I just prayed for it, right? Well, even that could be a deception as well. But anyways, so the first time red flags came about was about 2 months in. And what had happened was, so I was planning a trip to go and visit with me and Callan. I was planning a trip to go visit her. And I ended up losing my phone. I don't know how, I don't know where. Like the phone just, it straight up disappeared. It was nowhere to be found. And I was actually doing a job, and it was at this guy's house. I was doing yard work for him. And he doesn't have a big house. He doesn't have a big yard at all. And so I was looking for my phone, and it was nowhere to be found. It was nowhere in the yard. It was nowhere in his house. It was nowhere in my truck. Nowhere. Just gone. I tried calling it. Couldn't hear it ring. Nothing. And I was just baffled. I was like, where is my phone? Like, it's just gone, disappeared. Anyways, I ended up having to go buy a new phone. And it ended up digging into the money I had saved to go and visit. And so when I let her know that, I was like, hey, we're going to have to postpone the visit like another few months because, I just had to spend a bunch of money buying a new phone. And that ate into what I was going to use to go and visit. And instead of being understanding or caring or compassionate about any of that, that's when I was immediately accused of wanting a sugar mama. I was just some, broke person who, can barely support his family. There's all kinds of mean, nasty things were said. And I was just like, whoa, like, where did this come from? Like, you seem like you're concerned about money. Like, money is not my concern. I make enough to provide. And, she never offered to help pay, nothing, never offered to help, none of that. It was just like, oh, you're not husband material if you can't even afford to come visit me and this and that and another thing. And I was like, yo, I just had to spend $400 on a new phone. And not only that, the whole round trip tickets were like $1,500 to $1,800 for a round trip. So do I have that much money just laying around constantly? No, of course not. But I do make enough to provide. But she made it seem like I was just some broke loser. Didn't do anything for my family. Just, the belittling, the trashing, the bashing. And I was just like, I was taken back by it all, honestly. But anyways, the next morning she had came, or she called, and she wanted to apologize for all that. And because I had seen those red flags, that put me visiting on a hold very much so. I was like, whoa, I just saw red flags from my ex right there. And I was like, I don't know if I'm interested anymore. And I should have broken it off then and there. But because we were calling every day, talking every day, I ignored these red flags. And I thought to myself, there's nobody in the body who's a believer can ever be like that type of person. I was like, there's no way. And boy, was I wrong. Anyways, so instead of calling it off or anything, I actually ended up falling deeper and deeper. And, there was definitely ups and downs. There was definitely more red flags. There was a lot of these red flags. Yeah. And in my foolish, blind love, I ignored these red flags. I just kept thinking to myself, there's no way a believer can be like the same person as my son's mother. But they are. It doesn't matter if they're in the world, if they're in the body. It's the same thing, no matter where. But, eventually, I don't know when it happened or how it happened. I ended up falling for her for some reason. And then I think it really amped it up when, we started figuring more things out about the calendar and doing these deep dives into the calendar. Actually, right when we created this group, actually. And, behind the scenes this whole past year, I've been trashed, I've been bashed, belittled, even while doing, fellowships and presentations. She was always there in my messenger, in the background somewhere, telling me how terrible of a job I'm doing, telling me how I'm just such a moron because I speak so slow, or I'm not reading this too fast. I need to read faster, just all these things constantly, constantly, constantly. And, it got to the point that it was so very wearing and difficult for me. I got to the point where I was just giving up, you know, on everything, my studies, my readings. I still have a bunch of, write-ups I'm working on that are still, in the process because I didn't even feel like working on those. Not to mention she was taking up all my time, cutting into my work, all of these things. to have me, write answers so she can copy and paste and go fight with Pharisees on Facebook, or write things out for her so she can copy and paste and put it on a post on her wall to take credit for what, I was doing. I'm not the only one she's done it to either. There's definitely others here she did the exact same thing to. And but every time it came to going to meet or visit or anything like that, there was something that always came up, and I believe it was Yahuah himself that wasn't allowing it to happen. She can say it's for other reasons, and she probably does say it's for other reasons, because, oh, I'm just broke, I have no money, this, that, and another thing. She has no idea how much money I have. That's what she is a money chaser, unfortunately. But I'm not trying to be here to call names or anything. I'm just trying to give my testimony. But it was Yahuah himself who was playing a hand in it. And every time we would plan something out, do something, or want to do something, something happened that came up, and it just did not allow for it to happen. And throughout this whole 2 years that we were together, I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. And a lot of what I found out going on behind the scenes didn't happen until recently either. And before I talk a little about that, I just want to go into how it was maybe 3 days before I was kicked to the curb. And Marissa is the witness to all of this as well. She was there behind the scenes on both sides of the party. She knew exactly what was going on. And she had put it on Marissa to carry this burden. And that's a whole nother story. But anyways, so about, I think it was 3 days before she left, 2, 3, 4 days. I don't remember the exact count. But she had called me one night, and she was very intoxicated. She had just come back from a dance club after drinking who knows how much. And I had my suspicions, but, when she called, she told me, her words exactly were, I love you so very much. You're my best friend. I don't know what I would do without you. And I think you're too good for me. And, many more words than that as well. The I've always been faithful to you. I've never betrayed you, things like that. And then she got in this, I don't know what to call it, this huge fight with her mother. And while I was on the phone with her, and this fight lasted probably a good 45 minutes or so. And I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what to say, because it was the most aggressive and violent word fight I've ever heard. And the entire time I was just praying to Yahuah, like, please, let this calm down. But anyways, the fight was over, and I tried to comfort her and be there for her and talk with her. And so the next morning comes, and she calls me like right away. And we were talking, and, I was like, I had mentioned, hey, Marissa's going through some similar things. She kind of drank a little bit last night too, as well. And she was like, what? Oh, really? Get her on the phone. maybe we can all talk about this together. And I was like, yeah, I can read some scriptures for us, pray some uplifting prayers and things like that. And that's exactly what we did. We were talking on the phone that morning. Uh, I don't remember what I read. It was the Psalms or Proverbs. It was one of those I was reading. And, I was just being there, uplifting, encouraging, like, hey, we all make mistakes. It was Psalms. There you go. Just being there and supportive, how we should be as children of Yahuah. And, later on that day, she was telling me, oh, yeah, we're definitely going to work things out and this and that. And then I think it was like the next day after that, I was told, oh, give me space. Or no, actually, sorry, it was before she called that night that I was told, oh, I need space, I just need space and time to think about some things, and, don't worry about anything. I just need space. And I was like, okay, fine. And then she had called that night. But I guess behind my back, she was telling everybody, oh, yeah, we're done. We're broken up. He's this, he's that, he's another thing. And not only that, but she was meeting and seeing other guys in this time as well. Man, I'm sorry. But anyways, so I was told to give her space, and that's exactly what I did. And it was only for about a week. And then she had called, and then that's when she told me, yeah, we're going to work things out and this and that and another thing. And then, I go, Marissa came to me and told me, hey, you got to make a move now or never. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Yeah, exactly. Yep. She played the mind games. Very manipulative. But anyways, I was basically told, make a move now or never, or it's going to be too late. And so I jumped. And the second, yep, witchcraft. And the second I brought this up, the second I was ready to pull the trigger on everything, not 20 minutes later, well, first she was giving heart and flower emojis and like, not an answer, but, just heart and flower emojis. And yeah, literally down to the minute, all of a sudden it's, oh, well, I was talking to Lee last night, and, he found this doctrine that, eating meat is a sin. And I wanted to look into that. And yep, 100% flip. And I'd already gone down that road with her before, and I disproved it and all of that. But she brought it back up again, and it was for the reason to be an excuse to just toss me to the side, kick me to the curb once again. And so all that day, I told her, I was like, yeah, no, let's study this out. Let's check it out. Let's have a conversation with Lee on the phone, all these things. There was never any response to any of that until that evening when I said, hey, you ready to, talk about it, study this out, let's talk with Lee. And she's like, you're just not willing to study it out. I'm like, what do you mean? I just asked to study it out right now. Let's study it out. No, you're unwilling to search it out. You already disagree, just ripping and tearing into me. And I was like, yo, I've been silent all day long waiting for your response to search this out. And this is what I'm getting. You got to talk to him yourself and this and that and another thing. I was like, all right, fine, I'll call him. So I get on the phone with Lee, and it was just everything he was saying was word salad to, for lack of a better term, just word salad. It was just, he was saying things, I would call it out as false. I would say, that's not what scripture says, brother. And his response would be, oh, you sure you have the right scriptures? I'm like, yeah, I'm absolutely sure. I'm like, where are you getting your responses from? Oh, well, I have my sources. And he was very reluctant to say what his sources were and things like that. Reluctant to share them or anything. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Are you sure you have the right scriptures? You sure you have the right scriptures? I'm like, yeah, I absolutely am sure. Yep. And so he was trying to say all this nonsense. It just was not fitting scripture. I was calling him out left and right on it. He was like, "Oh yeah, in scriptures it says Yahuah gave us bad commands." I'm like, "Where does it say that?" Well, I don't know. It's in somewhere. Go look it up. So I look it up real quick, and he's trying to like change the subject, and I was like, "Nuh-uh, we're gonna go back to this. You know, Yahuah. You said Yahuah gave bad commands. We're gonna address this right now." And it was a verse in Isaiah somewhere. I don't remember the exact verse, but it's the one where he says Yahuah gave the people over to bad commands. And I called that out. I'm like, look, he gave them over to the bad commands. He's not saying he gave them bad commands. He just gave them over to them. Why? Because they had a hard heart, stubbornness, all these things. Yeah, exactly. And that, yes, that as well, Rachel. She would team up and record. She would have people listening in the background on phone calls, messages. She would screenshot, just all of that. Yeah, there was just, man, it goes so much deeper than that. But anyways, I called Lee out on all of that. And he was just like, well, yeah, I got my sources. I was like, okay, can you share these sources? He never shared the sources. And you know why? It's because they were Gnostic. They were from these garbage Essene Gospels, the very ones I spoke about earlier, which, you know, this coming Sabbath, I'm going to get into a little bit as well, you know, while, because I know Marissa's got her calendar presentation, but I also wanted to contribute by, you know, showing where this title Essene comes from and how it has nothing at all to do with the sons of Zadok in Qumran. You know, we've gone over how there was animal bones, sacrificial altars, all of these things at Qumran. We went over how they had meat with their community meal at Qumran. All of these things. But none of that mattered to her anyway. It was just all an excuse to kick me to the curb. What was the excuse for? Because she had met a man at her restaurant, completely of the world, not a believer, probably didn't even have a Bible, still observing the pagan holidays, and gave him her number. Right off the bat when they met, this dude said, I think you're my wife. And she said, oh, how much money you got? He said it, and she said, yep, I'm your wife. That's probably not exactly how it went, but basically how it went. So I was kicked to the curb for a man of the world because he has money. This was about four weeks ago now. She met this man about 4 weeks ago, married him 3 weeks into knowing him. They're already married. It's all been done in secret behind everybody's back. Even though she talks about it on her Facebook and such. But I don't think people are quite aware of the entire situation going on there. But anyways, that in itself says everything you need to know about who the type of person she is. And it says everything you need to know about the Jezebel Spirit that we just went over as well. You know, it is the second time in my life I have fallen for one of these Jezebels. You know, they're uncaring. They have a heart of stone. They will turn their backs on the people who are closest to them and who love them the most, and then paint those people in a bad light while playing the victim themselves. And that's exactly what she did. And as you can see, that's the similarities between my son's mother, how she left, and Katrina, how she left. There was no closure. She was too cowardice to admit any of this to me. Everything she told me over the phone was a blatant lie. Because there's many testimonies from many other people about how at Passovers and Sukkots and things like that, she's flirting with almost every single guy there. You know, her ex reached out to me, and because she goes on cruises with her ex's parents, he let me know that his parents told him that she was over there hitting on every single old rich man that had money on all these cruises that she would go on. You know, every time she went on these cruises and vacations, we were together. She would tell me, oh, I'll call you, I'll send pictures. Never hardly got any calls. Never hardly got any pictures. And it's because she was out there chasing these men for their money. Didn't matter if they were of the world or not. It was for fleshly desires, her narcissistic sexual immorality spirit, the harlotry. And again, I'm speaking this in truth because this is all absolute truth. But anyways, I don't want to get too caught up in all that. But really, the reason why I'm saying all of this is not only to let everybody here know, because, you know, a lot of people here already knew about it. A lot of people online, everywhere, knew about our relationship we had. And ever since then, you know, like the other day, the voice message I left in the chat, you know, every single day there's somebody coming to me with screenshots, you know, testimonies, things like that, exposing exactly the type of person she was and what she was doing behind my back. The things she was saying behind my back to others while saying opposite to me in private. You know, Marissa is 100% a witness, especially to the last few times that it's happened. And yeah, she's in the chat right there, you know, showing it. Yep, he's just her new supply. Yep. And that's exactly what it is. So, anyways, I wanted to give that testimony, not only to just get it all off my chest, because I've been holding it in for far too long. I've shed too many tears over somebody who's probably not shed a single tear over me. My heart has been broken, ripped out, and stepped on over somebody who does not care. But honestly, the blessings that have come from this, you know, we have our fellowship here. You know, this is more than just some kind of online thing to me. You know, this is much deeper. We're truly, truly family in Yahuah. You know, regardless of our small differences that we have, our slight disagreements, you know, we have come together in love and compassion and humbleness. We've come together to help uplift each other. You know, it's been such truly a blessing in just that aspect alone. And, you know, I truly appreciate and love each and every one of you, especially those who've all reached out to me and all of you who've been praying. You know, it means a great deal to me. And, you know, I don't know what I would have done without all of you, honestly. And yeah, no, we are grateful to have you here as well, Andrea. And, you know, I say it not only to testify for the blessings that have come from this. And like I mentioned before, ever since she has been removed from the group, we've had no problems. There's been no fighting, no arguing, no discord, no contention, no separation, no accusations, no condemning, none of that. And it's so wild how one person can affect and infect an entire fellowship, a congregation, what have you. Just a single person can have that much of an effect. And I also bring this up because, I want to publicly apologize and repent and rebuke, because I truly want to publicly apologize for, allowing myself to be controlled and manipulated and used the way I was. There was things that went on in the chat, all the discord and the arguments and things like that I should have put a squash to, and I didn't. Because if I did, it would have been me that she was fighting and arguing with. Not that it wasn't even anyway, but truly, I want to repent of all that. I want to rebuke any of these spirits, these unclean ruach that have been left behind or trail behind in her wake of destruction. And, I'm truly sorry for allowing all the discord and contention that happened. And it's because I myself was being controlled and manipulated. Yeah, exactly, Natalie. That's what she would do. That right there. Hunted. So yeah, she hunted Natalie down on her post, brought me into it. And the reason was because he left the group because of how hateful she was. When Natalie saw the equinox on the 19th versus the 20th, I had no qualms with any of that. It was her pushing and manipulating me to do these things. It was her saying, if you don't do this, we're done. If you don't do that, we're going to separate. That was all going on behind the scenes. It was all the pressure, just everything. And, truly, I apologize for all of that. I want to also apologize to you personally as well, Sister Natalie. I should have never allowed any of that. I should have not come to her aid. And, it was a hard situation, truly. And Tuda, sister, Tuda. It's such a blessing, honestly. It was Yahuah himself who intervened. It was his hand that intervened in that, because I was too foolish and blinded by this unrequited love I had, that I was willing to do nothing about the things that she was doing. And I feel so bad for allowing all that to happen, honestly. Yeah, it is a spell. It's witchcraft. It's word curses. Yeah, you can't choose anyone over Yahuah. You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, I was doing that because I started to fear the consequences of disobeying her rather than the consequences of disobeying Yahuah. And I feel terrible. I even feel terrible to Yahuah about that, I should not have allowed that to happen. Now imagine what life would have been like if I had married her. Yeah, it would have been just torment. I already know it would have been. Yep. As much as it hurts, honestly, we are all better off without that. I know for 100% I am. Ever since I've honestly felt freed, I'm able to get back into my studies. I'm able to work on some of these projects and write-ups that I've been, keeping on the back burner or just straight up ignoring because I've just felt so worn out, like a light bulb, a dim light bulb that's about to just die out. That's exactly how I felt. And especially, yeah, but especially, the last couple months, I had completely just given up. And Marissa saw it. She saw it. I had just completely given up. I was just agreeing with her to get along. You know, it was bad. But, like I said, the blessings that have come from that, I'm so thankful and grateful for. If anything, I've learned that if something is presented that can be backed up with scriptures, it's definitely worth digging into more and looking into more. And if two people still disagree about something that both can back up with scriptures, then it's okay to just agree to disagree. Because 90% of everything else we're going to agree about. And it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about seeking Yahuah's truth. It's about coming together in love and compassion, being there for one another, helping uplift one another. And, truly, I apologize to everybody who was here at that time, those who had listened on YouTube, things like that. And, I repent of all of that. I rebuke any of these unclean ruach that have lingered since. Yeah, is it a salvation issue? It's okay to agree to disagree. If it's not a salvation issue, yeah, exactly. Yep. Ding dong, the Jezebel Spirit is dead. Yeah, this group is definitely Shalom. Night and day. 100%. Yeah, you were there, Natalie. You witnessed. You witnessed all that. Marissa witnessed all that. Many of you witnessed all of that. I know Carmen and Rachel definitely took a brunt of a lot of that as well. And she was very aggressive with especially you two sisters because, you were speaking about how to cast these unclean ruach out, how to get rid of them. Because they affect her so badly, she doesn't want that being exposed. So she was vehemently against everything, you were saying. And yes, I truly apologize for all of that. It should have never been allowed to get to the point that it did. Yeah, no worries, sister. Yeah, of course. And truly that is the real blessing out of this. Now I know exactly what to look out for. I know exactly that just because someone claims to be walking that path, they claim to follow Yahuah, doesn't mean that they actually are. When you see the red flags, they are red flags. Do not try to love them out of anybody, or it's just going to bite you in the end. And like I mentioned before, I personally myself had no idea these type of people existed before my son's mother. And I am also responsible for this last breakup because I didn't see the red flags. I did see the red flags, but I ignored them. Yep, that as well. Some here have also witnessed this unclean ruach in her, but have chosen to with her, take up sides with her anyways, and report back to her the things that we say. I pray those claws are removed from you, my sister. That's the thing, is I know there are people in here, I don't know who it is, but they are reporting to her exactly what's going on in here. As sad as that is, witnessing the type of person she is, the fact that, that is willing to be done for somebody of such a status as that, it's baffling to me. But I love you anyways, and you are always accepted here, whoever you are that's sharing information with her. Yeah, no problem, Andrea. Layla Tobe, sweet dreams to you, and thank you for showing up, honestly. It's great to have you here. Yeah, no, I had to personally block her because she would not stop with the just vicious, the vile messages towards me. Truly, like, disgusting. I hadn't talked to her since that whole thing happened. And she comes out of nowhere I think it was last Shabbat, just leaving the most vile, hateful, spiteful message to me during our fellowship meeting, knowing that we were in our fellowship meeting. Yep, definitely smart to block. But yes, if the person who is letting her know the information going on here is listening, like I said, I still love you, but I would really think about the choices that you're making. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Sister Ellie. You you are very accurate there, sister. You are very accurate there. I was blinded to the unloving spirit that she was manifesting. And yeah, that I spoke on that a little bit. I was the one coming to her defense, making excuses for her behavior. And truly, I apologize. I apologize for that. Yeah, exactly, Sister
Brother,
Rachel. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I want you to know that from the get-go, I was concerned about the spirit I was seeing, and I was praying, and when she would come after me, sisters would get a hold of me and say, hey, like, don't leave. Not that I threatened to leave. I was just waiting on the Father to know what he would have me do and when and how, because I love you all,
Yeah.
and I know that it's very hard to be in the position you're in, and I had to I had to grow through being manipulated by a narcissistic spirit, by a Jezebel spirit. And so I was really keeping you in my prayers, and I was praying that she would release that spirit or you would be released from her, because this would not help build the spirit of our Abba in the group. It was tearing it down. It was hurting people. People were leaving, and I was so grieved whenever you would say, "Oh no, it is loving," and it's like, "Oh wow, you don't even see love, Father. Please open his eyes." But that's my heart, and I love you guys. And if there's a way that she can go through whatever she needs to go through to be released from that, I want to see that happen.
I do as
Yeah,
well. I second that.
yeah, me as well. And thank you, Sister Ellie. And yeah, no, I saw those arguments, and I want to apologize to you as well for not stepping up and quashing them. I want to apologize for making excuses for her. And you're right, sister. I was blinded to that fact.
And you know something? When we're blind, we just don't see it until the Father opens our eyes. And it can be very, very painful. Like I say, I know the reason why I could recognize that spirit is because I walked through it with someone, and I could say, "Oh yeah, he's blind," just like I watched people that justified that sort of thing going on in relationships. So it's just a matter of our Abba being able to heal us, to open our eyes, and we go to him and he heals our hearts. And I'll be praying special for you in that too, because it's there's a grieving process, and the Father has done what needed to be done for his Son to be released. And I just pray that you will take full advantage of this time to go to him with your bruised and hurt and broken heart, and allow him to take you through the depths of it, show you what lies you believed. And it sounds like you're really on the road to taking responsibility. And when you get the big picture, then that his I don't know, you picture this heart, and it's got this it's cut, it's jagged cut, right? Because you got ripped, and because you guys were emotionally one even if you weren't physically. And so he's got to do that soul ties cutting and all that, and then that love, it's like he's got that, and he's going to put your heart back together with his love, and you're going to be much more aware, discerning, able to flow his love, recognizing when you're getting triggered, and just sitting back with him and say, "Abba, just help me have your peace. Help me walk through whatever lies that are getting me triggered so it doesn't come out of me and hurt somebody." And he will do that for you. I know he will, Jeremy, as you seek him for that.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate that truly. And all praise to the Most High. And it really was a blessing, because like Michael said here, if it wasn't for her, none of us would really have met. Honestly, we're all together here because of her. Really is what it is. If it wasn't for her pushing me to do some of these things about the calendar, we wouldn't have this group, we wouldn't have this fellowship. And it's been a brutal last few weeks for me, very brutal. But you know what? I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I can finally speak about it without, breaking down, crying in tears. And, my heart is being mended as well. And yeah, lots of people here because of her. And for as much damage and chaos that she has wrought, we've all come together in that. And yeah, many people had left the group because of her. And yeah, just like you, Sister Kim. But now all of these people are now coming back. Not all of them have. There's some I've reached out to, and they respectfully declined coming back to the group, and I totally get it. But I am very appreciative of every single one of you. Truly, I am. And yet, especially to the ones who caught the full force of her rage and her anger for disagreeing, those ones that left, and the ones that have come back even. I want to apologize to every one of you. Yeah, much love to you as well, sister. Yeah, Marissa's presentation. Yeah, all these things have worked together to be a blessing. See, and now we're all here, we're all together, and we can actually study together, learn things out with shalom and compassion and understanding instead of the division and quarrels and fighting and arguing. Yeah, Layla Tob, Sister Natalie, I pray you sleep well. Yeah, Marissa's helped to open the door for others to return. Yeah, Marissa, you got a lot of amazing information, truly. A lot of you do here. Rachel and Carmen, you have a lot of great information and deliverance and healing, casting out those demons. Some of us know about the calendar, some of us know about the Dead Sea Scrolls, some of us know about scriptures. It's that whole, we have a different piece of that much larger puzzle. And it's about coming together and putting these pieces together. Yeah, that is exactly how the body functions. Absolutely. And it's truly a blessing. And I know for a fact I'm better off. I know for a fact many of us in here, actually our entire fellowship is better off. You know, not only did she betray me, she betrayed our fellowship, and unfortunately, worst of all, she has betrayed Yahuah by turning her back on the word, tossing out the word for these, strange doctrines and things like that. And, that just continues to open doors to more unclean ruach. And then she becomes infected by more unclean ruach. And, not just her, but anybody on that same path, anybody with that same kind of spirit, that I don't think they realize that everything they do just continues to keep opening doors to all these unclean ruach. And because they don't want to give enough credit to the enemy for doing that, they have no idea what they're doing or how they're being affected by them. And they truly need prayer and intercession for sure.
I think it's more of a heart issue than a doctrinal issue, because the Father will take people through all kinds of different doctrines and ideas and take them out the other side when they're wrong if they've got a true heart with Him. But if they've got some kind of communion with a spirit that needs to do lordship, that needs to belittle, that needs to talk down to and have a judgmental spirit toward people and treat them as though they're trash because they don't agree, that spirit is going to infect everyone around them. But like I said, as far as the doctrinal stuff, your position on understanding the calendar has changed, but that does not mean that we should have rejected you out of hand before because you saw it different than you see it now, because your
Yeah,
doctrine was wrong. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's it as well. And I do agree with that. So it's not always about the doctrines, but sometimes diving in and using these other doctrines as, your foundation can open these doors. But as long as, if you have a true heart for Yahuwah, he'll let you go through that just to find out that it's wrong. It happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to many, but it all comes down. Oh, go
He
ahead.
makes it all work together for good, brother. And so when we go down in now, I am like old enough to be able to tell you from decades of walking with him, probably more than many on the call, that we walk as he walks with us, and we make connections with people that they're doctrinal connections. He may correct us on the doctrine later down the line, but we make those love bonds with people. And when he corrects us, somebody else may come to us later and say, now I understand what you were saying. But we might have gone through that particular leading by his Spirit into that, thought that's the way it was because the Spirit led us into that group with those people for the purpose of opening our eyes to it, and the people that we have bonds of love with then are willing to examine it again because they see that we lovingly withdrew and we could explain why. And then they get a hold of us and say, hey, what's going on there? How come you're not? I mean, he's awesome. He works everything together for good to those that love him. Even if it appears somebody's going down a wrong situation doctrinally. That's my observation over
Yeah,
years.
I agree with that, sister, truly. And I love your wisdom and input that you give as well. Very wise counsel.
Sometimes we get so focused on the doctrine that we forget the heart. And we get so worried about people, and we want to separate them from this false doctrine. And oh man, he wants them to learn discernment and to see where their heart needs to be cleansed and to see how to work with this particular spirit or that particular spirit. And that's the bigger picture. He wants us to learn to flow in that love all the time. So that way that the people who don't know love will see it through us. The ones who need it the most won't be bringing out that spirit in us. They'll be bringing out, because we're learning from our Abba, they'll be bringing out only his love through us. And man, it takes time to get there because we automatically go to self-defense. We automatically go to petting our flesh or self-pity or, I mean, and I'm only speaking from experience here and observation for many years with people that I've known and loved. But he's more concerned about our characters getting right than he has about us getting the doctrinal ducks in a row all right now. Because if we have a teachable spirit, he can work with us. But if we don't have a teachable spirit and our doctrine is what we're using to divide ourselves from others on, what can he do with us?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that's what it was with her. It's she would get these doctrines, get into them, and then use them to condemn others who, wouldn't agree with it. Just like she did with the whole remarriage adultery, just like she did with so many, countless other things. It was weaponized and used against people who didn't agree or had a different point of view on it. And I think that's probably why I was saying, the doctrinal issue type thing. Like that's the point of why I mentioned it. But no, I agree with everything you say as well, sister.
The doctrine can be correct and the spirit be wrong. That's what I'm saying. So they carry the spirit of the wrong spirit into perhaps the correct doctrine. And so totally disgust people that they don't even want to deal with the whole issue at all.
Exactly. It's a matter of the heart. It truly is. Our hearts for Yahuwah and His truth, and seeking after what He wants. That's love, compassion, humbleness. Or do we have a heart for the world, or a heart that we're chasing on our own, which will lead to, these exact issues, the hardness of the heart really is what it comes down to. Yeah, that's it. Yahuwah is patient, loving, merciful, and he needs a humble and teachable heart. Absolutely. I agree, Rachel.
And you know something? He gave her, and I watched and I listened, he gave her opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to consider the spirit that she was manifesting over her doctrine. I listened to sisters plead with her, call her out in a kind and loving way, even on these groups over time. I got to the place where it's like, okay, Abba, I'll go on when you give me to go on. But I don't want to go on unless you're giving me to go on, because I want to be where you want me to be and responding the way you want me to respond. And that spirit just is not yours, you know.
Yeah, and truly that's what it's about right there. 100%. I agree. And yeah, sometimes it's not easy to give a testimony, especially when things are so very recent, but I think it's important as well, and important to help and show others, and just the glory and blessings of Yahuwah, and what comes from sticking to that narrow path no matter what you're going through.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of the family. It's been really precious to watch this whole everything come around. Watch answers to prayer. Watch people being willing to be viewed as wrong and not fight back, and just walking in their humility with the Father. And if they felt grieved or whatever, walking it through with Him, and then choosing to respond in love even when they were falsely accused, when they were wrongly used, and being willing to forgive when a lot of people would just say, nope, that's it. They've shown who they were. I want nothing to do with them anymore. Well, that's not our call. Our call is to know from the Father in each situation, with each person, with each group, where He wants us to be, not where we want to be. Well, that's one of the things I've been learning over years as well.
Yeah, and we can never stop learning. That's the thing. And we can never stop being humbled. And we have to take everything as, it's a test. And are we going to pass or fail this test? And if we pass, we get the blessing. If we fail, we'll get the curses. And that's written from Yahuah himself. And man, it's definitely not easy giving the testimony, but it's definitely important. And it really just shows, we are known by our fruits. And even the ones with the bad fruit, they still need prayers and intercession as well. And if it is Yahuwah's will to open their eyes and their hearts to turn back to Him, it's never too late until that day of judgment. Yeah, that's true, Michael. How can anyone know how to pray for us if we aren't transparent? And sometimes it's really hard for me to be transparent, but it is very important. If we just close up and keep everything inside, what happens when you do that to a teapot when you put it on, or a pressure cooker? The pressure can't just build up forever. It's going to eventually explode. We have to release all of that before we explode, and then it becomes a much bigger problem,
May I share a bit of an experience I had?
Yeah, go right ahead.
It was in the 90s, and I had been with a particular group, and some folks in that group lied about me. And so I wound up separated from them. And it hurt, but there wasn't an understanding with me of how to deal with it, except for, in fact, I got to the place with the Father. I said, Father, I really don't want to deal with this. Will you please separate me from this group, And so here's the lies going on and everything. And I was led to this other group. And in that group, it was a beautiful thing. But it's funny how the enemy of souls wants to cause so many problems. And now I'm trying to remember what it was that he does work all things together for good. It was a transparency thing. So here I am. The Father brings me to this congregation, and they're not a congregation I would normally attend. And this man gets up and he talks about being transparent, and how essentially his testimony of how the Father was working with him. And I was raised in, quotes, the church, a church, and my parents were employees of the church. And in that kind of position, the preacher's kids, the teacher's kids, the preacher's wife, the preacher's family and the teacher's family, they have it really, really hard. the conference kids. That's what they called it, because it was like a bigger, it wasn't little independent churches type thing. And so I learned very young that you don't tell anybody anything about what's going on with you. You don't do it. I got yelled at. I got threatened. I got beaten when it was suspected that, and I hadn't, but it was suspected that I had done something wrong. And I wasn't representing Jesus properly. I wasn't representing the church properly. And I was shamed, and I wasn't listened to either, because I could have told them exactly what happened, but it was decided that I was lying and I was talking back. So I went through a lot of training to not be real. And in this society, nobody's trained to be real anyway. We're trained to like have a certain face in different situations and act this way with these people and that way with those people. You act different at home than you do at school, and you act different at church than you do at school and at home, and and all that. We're kind of programmed to be not to be whole and not to be real. So here I am, and I'm crying. It's in the 90s, and I'm listening to this man talk about how he asked the Father to teach him how to be transparent. And so I started doing that. And it's a really, really challenging thing to do. It goes against all of our programming, and some of us are programmed much more severely than others in that area. It wasn't safe to be real at home, wasn't safe to be real at school, wasn't safe to be real at church. It just wasn't safe to be real. And so over the years, learning how to be real and honest to somebody besides just me talking to the Father about things. And even then, I wasn't sure I wanted to acknowledge some of these things that I didn't believe that I should have experienced or done or whatever. And I carried this shame just of being. And he showed me that after all of those years, we're talking decades. And he finally, by the Spirit, opened up that I was carrying shame for just being. Not for anything I did, just for being. And that shame had come down through my family line. But this transparency and being able to be real, being able to put into words, which I didn't have words when I was young. We didn't talk about things like that. You don't talk about things like that. That's just part of the rules, And so the sons and daughters of our Abba learning to go through these things, being with someone that had an agreement with a narcissistic spirit that has not experienced deliverance yet, learning to be able to share our own grief, our own pain, our own beating ourselves up because we picked them. Well, maybe we didn't pick them. Maybe we didn't pick them. Maybe some spirit that we had agreement with when we were young, learning how to survive, is one that we agreed with to get with that person. But as far as our will goes, as far as our eyes being open and understanding what we were getting into, we didn't have that because we had these spirits from these lies we believed from our background that blinded us to the spirits that were going on with the narcissist or whoever we wound up, quote, in trouble with. And learning that is very freeing. It's just, yeah, I believed the lie. Yeah, it felt good. Yeah, it seemed to be right. Yeah, all this, But the Father took me through, and He opened my eyes, and I have nothing to be ashamed of, because when I saw it, I asked Him for the strength to turn away from it, to walk away, and to bless the person, not resent them, not have a root of bitterness or anything like that in my heart. My heart is not hardened toward them in any way. And it is, oh, Abba, just bless them. Open their eyes to what it is that they've agreed with that made them this way. Keep them, draw them to you. Help them. I know that with that spirit that they're in communion with right now, it's going to be hard for them, what they're going to go through. And please keep my heart tender toward them, so that if they ever have to come to me, that I might be able to be part of their deliverance and part of their healing, that I will be willing to be used by you for that purpose. Just completely clear, make everything transparent, so that it's just your love, your life flowing through me. And the last few weeks, he's been working with me, and I've been praying with a sister. We've been looking at prayer. We've been looking at humility. There's a little book called Brokenness that the Father led me to share. And this lady got the book, and we've been going back and forth reading to one another on brokenness and what that really is. And we were going through, well, Father, is it possible to have areas of brokenness and humility in part of my heart, and other areas where I'm still hard and proud and I don't even know it? Because for me, man, I thought either you have a tender heart or you don't. But seeing that He takes us through these processes, that we don't have to be ashamed, because He's saying, now it's time for my Spirit to light this up for you. What are you going to do with that? And this is how we're learning. This is how we're growing. And when people who do the deliverance ministry, whether they're doing it because, oh, I've got the authority and I can do it, or because they really have a calling in it, and there's a difference between the hearts of those two types of people. Teaching and walking with it's a discipleship process. It's not a one and done, cast the demons out, and then in a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks they come back, and then the person who was not taught how to walk through and keep their deliverance then thinks that they were just deceived, that deliverance doesn't work, that there's, we have that responsibility when the Father leads us to someone to work with for deliverance, to disciple them so that they will be able to maintain. And when I was younger, the deliverance ministers weren't doing that. And I just, in the last year or so, have come across a man who actually disciples and teaches people to pray and have the everyday relationship, and look at what I'm struggling with, where my Savior had that same temptation and had victory, and learning what, asking Him, how will Satan bring the temptation to me during the next week, because we would get together weekly, during the next week, to try to get me to fall into that again, and asking him for promises, or asking him what he wants me to know, and to remind me when that temptation is coming, so that I can walk in his victory, in his life, rather than where I have fallen there again and again. It's just really, really precious. And right now I'm being very transparent, and I'm very thankful that we can do this, and that we can share our joys and our sorrows, not only with him, but with one another, so that we can say, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. And if they have a testimony how the Father's walked with them through a similar thing, he's not respecter of persons. If I seek him, he can do the same with me, and he can heal my heart, and he can show me my blind spots, and he can, anyway, that's where my heart is, what I'm sharing with you all. And I am so thankful. I got on late. I got on just as soon as I was done with another call. And I heard what you were sharing. And I am so thankful, Brother Jeremy, the process the Father's been taking you through during the last almost year since I met you. In all of this wonderful, wonderful group, too.
Oh, thank you, sister. I very much appreciate that. And yeah, you're like family as well. And yeah, we've been gathering. It's a, been a year and like 3 weeks, I think now. We had our 52nd fellowship just a few weeks ago, and 52 weeks in a year. But
Well, I
it
come on a
truly.
little later than that. So it's been almost a year for me, I think.
No, but yeah, you've been there. You've been here quite a while, and you're still fam sister, and you have very wise counsel, and thank you for being transparent. And it's hard to be, but it's very important to be as well. And it helps us to grow together and to have more understanding and love for one another as well. Truly. And yeah, I appreciate each and every one of you. And yeah, no, it's honestly so many of you have helped me out in the last few weeks. And if anybody is going through anything, feel free to reach out to me. I may not be able to answer or respond right away, but I will always be able to respond, and I'm always willing to help and to uplift. And I've been through it. I know how it is. I know pain, hurt, heartache, all of these things. And if anybody needs any help with prayers or anything, please, I'm always here. And like I said, that's what Yahuah is showing me. He's put it on me to be able to help others. Maybe that's why I've gone through all this, to be able to help others. But I feel that that's my calling. And, I'm always here for each and every one of you. And I will definitely walk through that fire with each and every one of you as well. And yes, thank you, Sister Ellie, as well. Very much appreciated. And you are welcome, brother. It is my duty and honor as a man of Yahuah to be able to do these things. Yeah, absolutely. thank you everybody, honestly. And truly, truly, I love each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. And like I said, it's more than just some kind of online thing. We're a family here. And honestly, I can't wait to gather for the festivals, whichever festival decide to gather on. But I do know for the equinox, my plan is to visit Missouri over there with Sister Marissa and her family and all those who live in Missouri as well. And maybe, take a little side trip to others who live around there, like Sister Kim. But yeah, you know, words can't describe, how much I appreciate all of you. Yeah, that sounds good. You could show me your apothecary there in real life, sister. At 321. Yep, exactly. So that's my plan. Have a equinox party, fellowship, gathering, whatever you want to call it. And we can all track the equinox at the same time. I think it'll be amazing. But that is my plan. And, my plan is also to just follow that cloud, wherever that cloud takes me, that's where I want to go. And, stepping up as, just a leader here because, you know, I had to. I was always told, oh, you're not in charge of all this, it's a group thing. Like you can't be the only one, in charge and things like that. And it's like I'm not in charge. I just have to step up and take a leader position to be able to protect the flock, and that's what it's really about. Not like I'm like bashing people on the head or saying, "Hey, you got to do this or that." No, it's about coming together in love and acceptance for each other. Not hating each other because we have a small disagreement about something. And honestly, it's been wonderful these last few weeks because we haven't had any of that. But yeah, I know it's getting late for some, and if anybody has anything else they'd like to add or say, feel free. And if not, we'll probably end it there or right here pretty soon. Yeah, thank you, sister. And it definitely needed to be done. And because so people were invited in to help push a agenda rather than people being invited in because they want to learn. And the people who were invited in to push an agenda were all removed. So, and each and every day, we grow here as a family. We got, let me see, 221 members now. All praise to the Most High. I don't think we've ever seen a growth this fast. The whole year we've been around. Honestly, I wasn't even planning on starting a fellowship like this. It just happened, and Yahuwah's will be done. It's not an easy task, but we have to be able to be willing to step up and take these positions. I never wanted to be any kind of leader or anything like that. But honestly, it's those type of people who actually make the best leaders because they're not going to take advantage of that position. And I know many people who are leaders in their community that they like to take advantage of that. And, that's not me at all. Not at all. Yeah, holding people accountable like scriptures command. Yep. I'm not perfect either. I don't know everything. I just do the best I can. And, I represent Yahuah, and not only, in public, but in private as well. And, if we're given Yahuah a bad name by our own image and our actions and things like that, even in private, he sees all that, and he's not going to give any kind of blessing. And, it's rather hypocritical if you're going to, teach and preach one thing and do differently. Now, that's a big no-no. So yeah, lead by example. It's what we got to do. Yeah, the loving thing to do, we do it in love. And it's the best chance people have at changing when they are met with consequences. Yeah. Even us ourselves personally, we will suffer the consequences of, if we stray from Yahuah, things like that. He's going to give us consequences. Just like a loving father would, But yeah, no, thank you all. I truly love and appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for being here and listening, being so very supportive, and also giving, your witness and testimony onto many of the things that I myself have encountered. It just helps to know that, I wasn't the only one seeing these things. I wasn't the only one going through these things. And, we're known by our fruits. That's what I got to say. Honestly, we're known by our fruits. That's Psalm 71. Yeah, you want to play a song, Sister Marissa? Is that what you're saying? Do it. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, so I wrote this song the other day. I really hate saying that though. Like I wrote it. I didn't write it. It's the word. Um, but I was feeling some type of way. Kind of like melancholy, but also like a little hopeful the other day. And Psalm 71 really stuck out to me. So usually when I write one of these songs, I have the chorus come to me first, and then I just try to fill it in with scripture. Because scripture is the word of life. So, yeah, if you haven't listened to the recording, I'm happy to play it for you guys. Let me never be ashamed. Turn your ear to me. Save me from that wicked man. Be to me that shelter I may always go. And when my strength fails, do not forsake me. In Abba, I have taken refuge. In Abba, I have taken refuge. My enemies lay await for my soul. Please don't go far from me. They're saying Elohim has forsaken him, but from the depths of the earth I'm brought up again. My soul which you have redeemed. In Abba I have taken refuge. In Abba I have taken refuge. You have taught me from my youth, and to this day I declare your wonders. My lips shout for joy when I sing to you. You have done great things. Who is like unto you? Your might will be shown to all those who are to come. In Abba I have taken refuge. In Abba I have taken refuge. In Abba I have taken refuge.
Beautiful. All praise to the Most High. Thank you, sister. We love your singing.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa. Thank you for listening in your spirit and putting it down and sharing it with us.
Yeah, I've sang that a few different ways now, but it just felt softer tonight after that whole testimony and everything. So, yeah, thanks for listening.
We appreciate it very much so, sister. Very beautiful. Very fitting as well. But yeah, no, thank you all. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for just being a part of the family, And we'll gather again here on Sunday for our Shabbat. And Marissa has some excellent stuff about the calendar she'll be presenting. A lot of great information. I got some information I will be presenting as well. And it all has to do about the calendar, so no worries. But I pray you guys have a blessed rest of your evenings and nights, or your day, wherever you're at. Yahuah bless you, keep you. May his face and his countenance shine upon you and give you shalom. And much love, everybody. We will see you all here in just a few days. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom, brothers and sisters and brothers.